Hi, everyone, and a very, very, very warm welcome to today's SAP Community Call on the topic of SAP Activate. My name is Lena. I am part of the SAP Community and Influencers team, and I'm your technical host for the session today. So you are all here really because you want to get to know SAP Activate. You want to learn about the SAP Activate methodology, how to use SAP Activate on projects, and really gain insights into the latest innovations and future direction of SAP Activate. And we couldn't be joined from any better people here, colleagues from SAP directly than Jan Musel himself, who's our SAP Chief Product Owner for SAP Activate methodology. Jan is running a team of product managers that are constantly maintaining and working on the SAP Activate methodology. And we are together joined here by Nishat Fatima, who is our SAP Activate Community Lead in SAP Community, and who's also our moderator for this session today. So it will be a very interactive session where Jan is going to present to us, and Nishat is then going to ask him questions already during our upcoming call. But we also served a lot of time for you guys towards the end of the session to really address your questions, because that is also why we're here and why we saved some time for you today. So let me briefly explain a little bit of housekeeping rules. A lot of you already kind of used our chat functionality. So this is really for sharing insights, sharing comments. You can share your SAP community profile links, but you can also, of course, share where you're from, because we're interested in where you're all calling from. Is it morning time for you? Is it evening time? Is it afternoon time? And really the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen here in Zoom to ask your questions. Because in the Q&A, we also have the ability to upvote questions, so we know what's most pressing for everyone, so we can address those questions at the earliest convenience. If there is questions left really that we cannot answer, Jan and Nishat already offered to follow up with a blog post in the SAP community after our call. This is a recorded session. It will be put on our YouTube channel, and the presentation that will be shared as well as the recording will be available in the SAP community. And with that being said, I'm handing over to you guys, and I'm happy that you joined us today.
Thank you, Lena. So as Lena mentioned, my name's Nishat Fatima. I'm the SAP Activate Community Lead. I'm super excited to have this call with you guys today. So we'll talk about the community a little bit. We're gonna introduce the SAP Activate topic. We'll talk about recent innovations, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So as Lena mentioned, if you wanna start putting your questions in the Q&A feature on Zoom, we'll get to those. We'll also have an option for you to unmute yourself and ask us questions towards the end of the presentation. But for now, let's just get started. So first topic, the SAP Activate community. As I mentioned, I'm the community lead. So if you haven't already, please join the SAP Activate community page. I'll send the link in the chat in a bit here. So this is the page where we will share insights, thoughts. So as Lena mentioned, Jan has a team of product owners for specific topics for SAP Activate. So we do write blogs, and we have our community who also shares their insights and thoughts, and you will have the opportunity to also participate. And I'll talk a little bit more about blogging towards the end of the presentation. And then you can also participate through Q&A. If you have a question, or if there's an existing question that you have an answer for, feel free to answer. This is really a platform for all of us to engage with each other. And it's not just about the SAP Activate team, but you guys learning from each other as well on how well you're using SAP Activate for your projects, or if you want to share your thoughts, or if you have specific questions, we're here to answer those. And then last thing, if you don't already follow the SAP Activate tag on the community page, please feel free to do so. So that's a bit about the community, and my goal for the community is to really foster a collaborative environment and make sure that we're all engaged with each other and we are communicating with each other. So feel free to use the different functionalities. We also have a subpage that we recently launched with more links and more opportunities for you guys to learn about Activate and provide you with more resources. And then we'll have these community calls on a quarterly basis. So you'll hear more from us on specific topics as well. So please do take advantage of this. And if you don't already follow us on the community page. Make sure that you're following the tag and you have your notifications on so you know when a new blog is published or when there's a new question and you want to answer that. Or if you have a new question, you can post that and we'll make sure that you get the right answer. So without further ado, I do want to hand it over to Jan to talk about what SAP Activate is, and I'll have more questions for Jan towards the end of it.
Thanks, Nisha, and thank you everybody for joining us this morning, afternoon, evening. I see that we have people from all over the world. I saw India, Romania, South Africa, UK. I'm sure we have few people in Germany as well as in the US, so don't be shy. Chat in the, or post in the chat where you're from. Jesus from Chile, nice to see you. So we have a couple of exciting topics today to cover. I'll start with a very brief introduction of SAP Activate, and then we'll talk about something more recent that we have introduced in Activate since we entered into this remote work, hybrid work environment that requires us to do the projects in slightly different way. So without further ado, let me jump into the topic. So first, what is SAP Activate? Some of you may have joined this call because your friend told you that this is going to be a cool call, but you don't know what SAP Activate is. So SAP Activate is a set of methodologies, content, and tools that SAP delivers customers to enable your project teams to really find answers at the right time for the questions that you should be asking at that time. It is structured into 6 phases of implementation. And I think the presentation is playing games with me. So I'll stay on this slide for a little bit. It is structured into 6 phases, and I'll talk through them. But really, the project teams, when they're getting together, you're getting together a mix of people. You're getting a mix of experts. You're getting a mix of business users, technology users that may or may not have been exposed to SAP previously. And when they do that, they need to get answers to specific questions. And we have designed Activate to be structured into the 6 phases and guide the users through those phases and give them prescriptive steps to follow in implementation of SAP. But that's not all. That's the methodology. We also have the other 2 components, which is a combination of the ready-to-run business processes that SAP delivers either in the form of best practices, enterprise management layer, or best practices for SuccessFactors, ERP, SAC, and other products. We also have a toolkit, a set of tools that are available either built in to the SAP solution, like configuration tools or data migration tools that SAP delivers inside our solutions. Or it may be a set of tools like application lifecycle management tools that are helping you to run the entire implementation process with everything from gathering requirements, going through design activities, documenting your solution design, configuring the solution, testing it, migrating data, and prepping for go live. So that's really a comprehensive set of tools, and Activate describes how to use these tools and which tools to use at which point in your project. And why we do that? We do that to really enable you as our customers, as our users, to run projects in a structured way, to get the right guidance, to ultimately increase the speed of innovation, increase the speed at which you are delivering these projects, at which you serve your businesses. And that drives greater productivity for your business, and ultimately a business impact. So we have designed Activate to be scalable and support projects of various sizes. We have customers that are, startups, smaller companies, growing companies that are using Activate. We also have large established enterprises that are using Activate in their projects. And there's definitely a size and complexity difference between these applications, and SAP Activate has been designed to support that in the use of Activate. I apologize, I have a little guest here that's disturbing me a little bit. It's my cat. It's been playing with toys on my table, so I'll lower her and let her entertain herself. So back to the topic. So we have designed Activate into 6 phases, as I mentioned, and I'm going to be showing those phases on the screen as we go through this next slide. So these 6 phases are structured into the phases that typically happen before you formally kick off the project. That's the discover phase. This is a phase in which project teams typically assess the requirements, assess the fit of the solution, scope the project, get all the ducks in the row so you can get started with the project properly. Prepare phase is the initial phase of the project in which we are doing the initial detailed planning for the project. So, detailing out all the work that needs to happen at least in the next 2 phases. You're doing cyclical, repetitive planning. It's not that we are planning out the entire project in the detail of executing every single task, but we are looking forward into the next 2 phases typically. We also stand up tools like Cloud ALM, start self-enabling or enabling the project team on the solution and the process, so they are ready to run the fit to standard project, fit to standard workshops during the explore phase. These are really important to understand the fit of the solution and also identify any delta requirements that help increase the value of the solution for the customer. And these delta requirements can vary from configuration requirements. They may be requirements for extensibility, any requirements for integration, or even use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, or RPAs for your business processes that enhance the value of those processes. Once you have collected the initial set of requirements in the backlog, you will prioritize it and go into the realize phase, in which you will do a lot of the configuration testing, data migration activities. That's really where the bulk of the work is happening before we transition into the deploy phase, which focuses on getting the solution into business live. So getting the solution into live use. And after the solution goes live, we transition into the run phase, during which you're continuously improving the solution, extending it as the business grows or business needs evolve. And you may also go through a set of upgrades. Depending on the solution, the upgrades may be more or less frequent. It is described in each version of Activate. So now this is in a nutshell what Activate is. And we have, as Nishat mentioned, key 3 resources that will allow you to access the content that is available to you. So I'll start from the right side. We have the Best Practices Explorer. That's a tool in which you can access the best practices, enterprise management layer, all information about the business processes, about the ready-to-run business processes. Then in the middle, we have SAP Roadmap Viewer. That's content of the methodology that you can access and browse through. I will go into these tools as we go through the session. And then last but not least, it's the SAP Activate Community that Nishat mentioned. And we'll show you as we go through the session what currently is already delivered through the community. And we have big plans going forward. By the way, the community is relatively new. We stood it up in May of this year and moved the community onto the open platform. We used to have a community behind a gated process for signups, and we have changed that process this year to allow even more people to join us and enjoy access to the community assets. So this is in a nutshell what Activate is. Now let me talk a little bit about our recent innovations. So what has been delivered recently, and there's a lot to pick from. So I only had chance to pick 3, so we can keep some time for questions as well. So here are the key 3 innovations I want to talk about. We have as businesses entered this remote work paradigm at the beginning of last year, we have quickly switched gears and looked at ways of how to shift everything that is done in the projects into remote work. So there are existing assets that we have in Activate. We have done a comprehensive review of all the activities that happen in Activate. And out of everything that we do in the project, there were only 2 events that were typically done either in on-site or in mixed setup. And I'll talk a little bit about those 2 when we get to that topic. So second innovation I'll talk about is the Solution Standardization Board. This has been prompted by us introducing the 5 golden rules for implementation of S/4HANA. And then a lot of our customers asked us to get a little more tactical in how to actually enforce the standardization, how to enforce the standard first in the projects. So we have introduced then a standardization board as means of getting that formally set up and governed in the project. And then third innovation is the SAP Activate Roadmap Viewer. If you're a user of SAP Activate Roadmap Viewer, you may have noticed that we have redesigned it. We continue to improve it based on your feedback, based on what you tell us through the feedback button in Roadmap Viewer. By the way, our team looks at all the feedback that we receive. It hits everybody's mailbox, and we have a process in place to look at all the new feedback in our sprint planning, and we work in bi-weekly sprints. So everything that comes to us and is actionable will find its way into consideration for the backlog. So let me start with the first innovation. So first is the resources for remote work. We have, as I mentioned, we have done assessment of what has been done previously remotely. SAP has done configuration remotely. We have done design work remotely. We have done testing. We have done extensibility integration. All that is relatively well understood. But there were 2 events that were typically done on site. One was fit to standard, which used to be done fully on site. Even in cloud projects, in most cloud projects, we had consultants come on site and execute these fit to standard workshops and get the results, and then remotely configure. And the second event was cutover. Cutover was typically co-located for the cutover weekend or the few weeks leading into the cutover weekend, and we had to shift with sizable number of projects in second quarter of last year into fully remote work because of the lockdowns and restrictions in place. So the two resources that well, actually three. There is a guide for offsite delivery that's available to you here, and you will get the link in the chat. We also have the resources for fit to standard playbook. So I'm going to open a blog post that I have published last year in April. So this is something that we have done very quickly. We have a guide for fit to standard. You can find it in the SAP Activate methodology. So I'll show you where you find it in Roadmap Viewer. So let me show you this example on a methodology roadmap for private cloud. And we'll use this as an example, but you will find it in public cloud. You will find it in other roadmaps as well. So I'll go into the public cloud roadmap. I'll clear my filters. So I have all the phases of Activate displayed in here. And we are talking about fit to standard. So I'm going to go into customer team self-enablement, self-enablement on fit to standard. So here is the how to approach remote fit to standard workshops. So this will download the accelerator for remote fit to standard. Okay, so here is the remote fit to standard playbook for your projects. And what you will find in here is additional guidance for your project teams on how to prep for these remote sessions, how to structure them, to keep in mind that we are spending a lot of time on the phone. We are on the phone right now, or on Zoom. Mix in some entertainment, some blocks of fun that make the workshops go a little faster and engage people. But we also have a set of checklists of what you need to have in place for each type of workshop, how to capture the results, and so on. If you are using Mural in your company, we also have a dedicated Mural template for these workshops that you can use and conduct the entire workshop remotely and allow for asynchronous engagement with the users. In those Zoom meetings, it may be disruptive if you have people jumping in. So that's something that you can look at as well. So that's one of the innovations. Remote cutover, same thing. We have the remote cutover available in the roadmap. So let me just show you where you find it. So don't shortchange that. Of course, cutover is happening in realize phase. So I'm gonna filter into realize. So I only have realize phase in here. I've used my favorites to make it easier for me to find these things. So you can favorite pages if you want to do that in Roadmap Viewer. And then again, we have a remote cutover playbook in here. It's downloading. I think I downloaded one before the session. So I'm just going to open it up. And it's very similar playbook that gives you a full play-by-play for a remote cutover. So you have the overview of the cutover, and then we talk about planning, dress rehearsal, and the actual cutover execution and post-cutover activities. So it provides pretty detailed slides, detailing out how you can structure the cutover, what are the things that happen, when they happen, and how to coordinate using virtual tools like Teams or other tools that you're using in your company. So those are pretty useful. We got good feedback from our customers on these assets, and I encourage you to use them. The second innovation is really tied to the 5 golden rules. It's the standardization board and the governance around it. So the 5 golden rules, let me talk quickly about them. We have designed them to allow project teams to put in a framework that will drive the standard first and allow for deviation from standard where needed for delivering business value to the organization. So we, of course, the first one is running with fit to standard. Second one is using the business content and Fiori for your starting point. Integration using modern technologies, using BTP, using API Hub for integration. For extensibility, that's rule number 4. We are also recommending to use modern technologies, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means in the next slide. And then 5th is really when you need to deviate. It's fine if it brings you value, but document why, document what you did, because there may be a point in the future when SAP delivers that capability, and you want to go back to standard if possible in the future. So there is a need for keeping the documentation. It's also good practice for companies that are using SIs to deliver these projects. SI may leave at some point, and if you're left with no documentation and you need to maintain that system over time, it is hard. So those are the 5 golden rules. Again, I'm shortchanging, I'm rushing through this so we can get to your questions. I mentioned that there are extensibility technologies that are modern. There is actually an extensibility guide, and you can see the link to the support note at the bottom here. It classifies different technologies into green, amber, and red. And for greens, it's fine, go ahead and do it. Amber, consider if you can do it with green technology. If not, consider and document amber, and reds should be avoided. And the guide is actually pretty detailed. It's available. It's been available for a few years now, and we continuously update it and refine it. But the real enhancement of Activate is establishment of the standardization board in the project. You can think of it as a governance board for all the amber and red extensions, all the amber and red integrations. Whenever you need to use technology that's classified as amber or red in your implementation, it should go through the standardization board, should be evaluated for the value that it delivers, and decisions should be made by standardization board. If standardization board decides and the project team disagrees, there's always escalation path towards steerco. They can make final judgment, final call on this, and then you move on. So this is really what we have in Activate in terms of innovations. The third one I mentioned, well, let me stick with the second one. I need to show you where to find it. So let me go back into Roadmap Viewer. I'm going to switch back to all content. I'll clear all my filters. So I'm seeing, again, a full roadmap. And as you would expect, the governance is set up in prepare phase. So we have governance in project initiation and governance deliverable. And then we have added a standardization board task that you will see here. And then, of course, like before, I could download it. I have already downloaded it before the session. And the standardization board will give you a full set of materials for your project team to set up the standardization board. It gives you the golden rules, the extensibility guide, charter for the board, operational guidance on meeting cadence, org, who is participating in the board, submission, how it works, and then it shows you how the standardization board evolves from project body to an ongoing function in your organization. So that's the second innovation. The third innovation is the actual roadmap viewer. So let me point out a few things in roadmap viewer that are new. So previously we had somewhat restrictive way of showing you the content. Now, everybody, when you come into the roadmap viewer for the first time, I'm just setting it up. This is how it's going to look like for everybody. You have ability to go in and pick and choose the roadmaps that you want to show on your startup screen. Whether you work on-premise projects, whether you do upgrades, you can pick and choose any set of roadmaps, and that will give you the initial tiles. So those are the 4 I picked. I can go into my public cloud and then navigate. On majority of our roadmaps, the recently updated ones, you will find this link. This link takes you to release notes, and the release notes are maintained in the community. So we have a community blog, this one by Dan, that's being updated regularly. Last update today. Okay, so this is how we keep everything up to date and how we maintain the content. You'll find this for a majority of these roadmaps. I could do the same thing for private cloud. You can see that Addy is maintaining a release block in here as well. And the last update was October 4th. I am kind of expecting that this will be updated later today as well, because we have a number of releases that are going out today. I have included this slide in the deck that you can refer to it later, but that's something that we have done in Roadmap Viewer. The other stuff that is new in Roadmap Viewer, there is expanded abilities to navigate in the content. So just quickly showing you, if you go into accelerators, you can see all the accelerators in the roadmap. You can, of course, filter by going into, say, show me only the prepare phase accelerators and only the accelerators that are for project management. That's all great. But sometimes when you see the accelerator, you want to see where it's attached in the roadmap. So you can go in here and go specifically to the task that you can access the accelerators here. So that's some of the features, functions that we have in Activate Roadmap Viewer that you can use. And last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the SAP Activate content for our S/4HANA Cloud products is in SAP Cloud ALM. And of course, for the on-premise products, you can download the WBS and load it into the solution manager. Sorry, I lost thought in there. So solution manager and Cloud ALM have all the SAP Activate content, or you can bring it into solution manager. SAP does bring it for you into the Cloud ALM if you're users of Cloud ALM. So I went a little over time, but I hope it gave you a couple of ideas of what you can do in your projects. Now, Nisha, do you want to talk a little bit about what we have in store for November?
Yes, thanks, Jan. So as you can see from your screen, we do have an opportunity for you to win an SAP Activate ebook. If you can do that by blogging. So the blogs that Jan shared in his presentation, you saw some of the blogs that he wrote and the team wrote. You have an opportunity to also share your expertise through the blog. And you can talk about how you have used SAP Activate in your projects, or a topic that relates to SAP Activate that you have insights on, thoughts on that you wanted to share. That's how you can. And then I'm actually publishing a blog about this challenge soon. So keep an eye out for that. That will have more details on blogging rules and what to kind of like think about and share. But yeah, like if you publish a blog, you will have an opportunity to win a free SAP Activate ebook that we have published.
That's cool.
So,
thank you, Nishat.
Yep. I guess we can jump into questions.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah. So I guess I will look at the questions in the chat first. So there are some questions that Kelsey has already answered. So please
Thanks,
take
Kelsey.
a look at it. So Kelsey is part of our team as well. So Jan, one of the polls that we had was how many people have used SAP Activate in projects, and looked like majority of them hadn't used it in projects. Can you share thoughts on what kind of benefits or some use cases on using SAP Activate for projects and how that helps?
Okay, that's there are a couple things that I want to share on this. First, it is different paradigm from ASAP. If you used ASAP in the past, the paradigm shifts quite dramatically, especially in the second phase of your project or second major phase. The phase where you design the solution, where you collect requirements. In the ASAP methodology, we used to create this massive blueprint document with all the requirements and design that was locked after the blueprint sessions were conducted and blueprint was signed off, and then it led through the realization. With Activate, we're starting with a pre-configured content where we have it available, and create requirements that are deltas to that standard. That requires a different thinking on the part of the business users as well as the project team. You will need to get to use no a lot more than you did in the past. That's one of the characteristics of successful projects, is that they know when to say no. When the requirement is not bringing additional value, when the requirement may be just re-implementing what we have already in the system today, whatever that system may be, and bringing it into the future, which is not necessarily increasing of business value for the users. But it also requires a lot stronger focus on organizational change management. That's one thing that I have seen severely underestimated in projects, because we are introducing a new solution, new processes for the end users. They're standardized processes brought by SAP, but you're bringing it into organization that's used to something else. And you need to really manage that change management. And it's even more important in projects that are shortening in duration. If you're running this agile project where you're not maybe delivering everything in one big bang, you're going in implementation waves, you really need to focus on that change management, because that window of change management is shortening as well. So you need to allow the users to get ready for that change. So these are probably a couple of things. Self-enablement, which is part of the change management, is a big part, especially in cloud implementations. You don't want to have the business users to come fresh into your fit to standard workshops. They need to have seen the solution, touched it, played with it, or at least understood how it works before they come into the fit to standard. Otherwise, your fit to standard will be a version of training with some requirements gathering, and that's not efficient.
Awesome, thank you. And then as I'm going through the questions here, one of the questions that was asked was, with what kind of population are you working to build a framework, like PM, PMOs, consultants? Who are we working with to build the framework?
So that's a huge change for Activate. And some of you may know me. I've been running methodologies in SAP for a long time. ASAP was kind of my baby in the past. And with ASAP, and let's talk about ASAP for a minute. With ASAP, our focus was on project managers and delivery people, delivery executives, delivery people that are running the projects. Basically PMO and PMs. We designed ASAP to drive the creation of the WBS, scheduling, planning, all those activities. When you looked at ASAP, about 50 to 60% of ASAP were project management activities and tasks. With Activate, we have changed that completely. In Activate, we have still kept the focus on project management, but we have reduced it to the level that it provides standardization and guidance for the projects. And we have significantly expanded areas of application requirements, design, configuration, integration, extensibility, data migration, cutover activities, cutover planning. All those areas are significantly expanded, including technology and architecture. If you look at, say, technology architecture, you will find details of receiving systems, how to set them up, guides on how to request them. So that's a significant change for us, and it took us a few years to get there, because we had a lot of PM stuff in the beginning. Now we really want to serve the entire project team.
Awesome, thank you. And
Sure.
I hope that answered your question. So how useful is SAP Activate for on-premise implementations?
Compared to what?
Compared to cloud, I'm guessing.
Compared to cloud, okay. It's as useful as the cloud roadmap. So on the transition to S4, that's our on-premise guidance in Activate. That's actually one of our longest standing implementation roadmaps, the most mature in terms of guidance. We have really, when we started with our core, with S4. So we started with public cloud and on-prem S4 at around the same time. So these two assets have similar maturity in terms of guidance and content. We have slightly slower update cycle for, well, significantly slower update cycle for on-premise, because the on-premise solution releases major release once a year. And then we have feature packs that come throughout the year. In public cloud, we have switched to releases every 2 weeks. And that's been in place for a long time now. But we have bi-weekly releases, and then we have major releases on any RTC. So today is RTC for S4HANA Cloud. So we are releasing all our cloud assets today. The on-premise roadmap will be updated shortly, because now we are out with the on-prem version of S4 for 2021. So in terms of usability and detailed information guidance, they are similar in terms of maturity, and usability is the same. If you're concerned about specific thing, please let us know through the community. What we do is that we share the content between the cloud and on-premise where it's applicable. So things like project management is shared across all our roadmap assets. When it comes to specific like provisioning details, they will stay specific for cloud versus on-premise. But we have good coverage for in on-prem, coverage for new implementation, system conversion, selective data transition. All these transition paths are supported in the on-prem roadmap. So I don't see any significant difference between the two.
Awesome, thank you, Jan. And then before we jump into the next question, I just wanted to address the Janet's question here about providing the link for SAP Activate certification. Thanks again, Kelsey, for posting the links. So in the Q&A functionality, if you see, Kelsey posted the link for both the certification and a blog that Bryce had written about his Activate certification journey. So feel free to look at that. And then there were a couple of questions on IBP and is there any possibility to develop an Activate roadmap for SAP IBP?
That's a good question. We need to think about it and talk with the teams that run IBP if there's a need for such a roadmap. I don't have a product roadmap answer for today, but I'm noting that as a request. I will further research it.
Awesome, thank you. And can SAP Activate help to break up functional silos and think more end-to-end when implementing S4?
Yes, it can. It can. But there's one key thing that you need to do in setup of your project governance. If you're setting the project teams into those functional silos, no methodology will break that up. If you set up your projects along the key processes that you're implementing, that will help with the breakup of the silos. You definitely, yeah, I understand what you're saying. There is a accelerator for how to set up the projects. It's in the governance of Activate. And you may have better chance of breaking up those silos by running the agile way of implementing, because at least we get together as a team across those silos once a week in the Scrum of Scrums. And the governance in setup by processes should definitely help.
Thank you.
Sure.
And then there was a question on how to access the mural templates and boards that was mentioned in the remote fit to standard workshop. And
okay,
Kelsey just answered that.
Kelsey just answered it. Okay.
Yes.
Kelsey is on fire today. Thank you, Kelsey.
And then, okay, so we can move to the next question. Is there a brownfield scenario?
Yes. So for brownfield, we have the system conversion, which is both in the, depending on your target. We have brownfield covered for the S/4HANA Cloud Private Cloud Edition, as well as the on-premise, where you have the system conversion, where you can convert from your existing ECC system into S4. That's fully covered in both of those roadmaps. So if I look at the, let me jump out of here. If I look at the roadmap viewer, specifically, this is the on-premise, so transition to S/4HANA, and this is the private cloud version. In both, you can go in, and when I clear out all my selections, at the bottom in more filters, you have filter by type of project, and you can select system conversion, and it will give you a view of that methodology for system conversion. So that should, and it works the same in on-prem if on-prem is your target.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure.
And then how is Activate related to the RISE paradigm?
So RISE is a commercial offering. SAP is commercially offering S/4HANA solution under RISE, which includes additional components. So if you're not familiar with RISE, let me just jump quickly onto sap.com. And within RISE, RISE with SAP, within RISE with SAP, you are receiving Let me see, here it is. So you're receiving the software, you're receiving BPI components, technology credits for business technology platform, Ariba or Business Network Starter Pack, and embedded tools and services. Now, with our roadmaps for private cloud, we have already incorporated all the RISE components. So there's a lot of new content that was incorporated, including the Ariba Starter Pack or Business Network Starter Pack. BTP is fully covered. And you can find those with these tags. So we have added Business Network, which adds details on how to set it up, how to request it. We have added guidance for customer COE recently, which covers some of the tooling aspects. And BTP is basically sprinkled through the entire implementation roadmap because we use it for integration and extensibility, and that's incorporated into these work streams. So when you look at integration and extensibility, you'll come across a lot of the mentions of how you use BTP for extensibility and integration. So we have already incorporated all those components. We're currently working with other teams in SAP to make sure that we cover it well. And our plan is to bring it into the public cloud roadmap soon. I cannot commit to specific dates, but we have it on our radar. We have it in our plans.
Awesome, thank you. And I hope that answers your question. So moving on to the next question, how does SAP MaxAttention team fit in SAP Activate, and what are MaxAttention roles in SAP Activate?
So we have worked closely with our premium engagement services teams since the beginning of the S4 roadmap development. And we have overlaid the key offerings of services that SAP delivers under MaxAttention across that transition to S4HANA roadmap. You can find the details actually in the roadmap itself. So if I jump out and go back into the transition to S4, there is a document. See if this is the link or it goes to the website. This goes to the website, but there's a document in here, the roadmap summary, I believe. That's what the team created, which details out the services. So it provides details on the transition paths and then overlays the services on the roadmap, so you can see where the different services fit in different stages of your project. So this is where they are overlaid in terms of the offerings that customers can consume if they're on MaxAttention contract, and then we have detailed links or how SAP can help sprinkled throughout the roadmap. So we call out these services the customer can use. So that's how these services are embedded in here.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah,
and then just a reminder to all the attendees, if you are using the Q&A functionality and any questions that we don't get to today, we will take it with us and post a blog on this. And then any questions in the chat, I don't promise to answer those because I haven't seen those, but the Q&A ones, we will get an answer to you either today or as a follow-up in a blog. And then for the questions that are asking if the slides and the recordings will be shared, the recording will be posted, as Lena mentioned earlier when she was introducing herself. The recording and the slides will be posted after the call. I think Kelsey also answered that in one of the questions. So yes, the recordings and the slides will be posted soon after this call. And then looking at the time, we have 3 more minutes. So I'll ask one last question, and then Jan, we can wrap it up.
Okay.
So is there any possibility? No, sorry, I already asked that question. This was a question I wanted to ask. A question about best practices content. Can public sector implementation use best practice content?
Yes, with a qualifier, of course. So BPX. Let me open BPX. May have been logged off from BPX in the meantime, so let me refresh. So in Best Practices Explorer, you will find 2 types of content, and I assume this question is around S4. If not, we can talk in the community if you had specific solution in play in mind. But in SAP Best Practices offer a set of standard processes that cover the core S4 functionality, regardless of the sector, regardless of where you're implementing. So if I look at our on-premise packages, we can look at the S4 package, and in here we have the standard set of processes across finance, HR, procurement, manufacturing, R&D. These are standard processes that are not specific to a industry. That's the on-premise content. If your question is about public cloud, in public cloud there is a, did I select the right one? It refreshed before I clicked, so I don't know. Let me see. While it's loading in, this is the one I wanted to link or open.
So Jan, quick time check where
we are time. Okay, I'll do this quick. So in here I can select what I want to see. Line of business. Line of business for professional services is in here. Public sector can reuse some of the processes in their implementation, and core finance, HR, and sourcing procurement processes will be pretty standard. And then you can extend it as needed for the industry. But maybe we will follow up on this question in the answer. Let's take this one with us, and we'll answer it in the community. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you for taking time out of your afternoon, morning, evening, midnight. I don't know where you all joined us. We are looking forward to more of these calls. This was first in a series. We're planning to run them quarterly, so stay tuned for our Q1 call. We'll be posting that probably in December, so we can schedule it, get everybody ready, get everybody enough time to get ready for this call. Any closing remarks from you, Lena or Nishat?
Yep. So thank you everyone for joining the call. Few reminders, as I mentioned, you have an opportunity to win an Activate ebook. More to come up on that. And then also, if you have any questions that you didn't get an opportunity to ask today, feel free to use the community to ask your questions. Somebody from our team will answer those, or somebody from the community will answer those questions. So feel free to use that functionality. And again, like if you have more insights to share, please do blog about those. And thank you so much for being a part of our community. And we are super excited to have you with us.
Great, thank you both. I cannot add more because Nishat, that was the perfect closing. All information got shared that I actually would have shared too, so I can't really add anything more other than just thanking you for your time. And I'm looking forward to A, the blogging challenge, and B, the upcoming SAP community calls with you too. Take care,
awesome.
everyone.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.